All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking to you today, Thursday, the 11th of January. And courtesy of a request by Shade, I'm actually putting the dates now in the titles of the live streams to make it a little easier to find. It's not super easy to seek out in my back catalog by date. And I may start putting in dates for the 2023 programs as well. But certainly starting in 2024, going forward, we'll have the date in there, and the format is date, day of the month, so 11 for today, then space Jan, and then space 24. The reason we're doing that's really interesting. For some reason, YouTube doesn't allow you to search simply by characters. There have to be spaces on either side. So if I search for Jan and there's a program called 11 no space Jan or 11 underscore Jan, you won't find it. But if you search for Jan with a space on either side of Jan, you will find it. So kind of hard to find things in YouTube, I've noticed. Anyway, for those who care about that arcana, I have just provided it. My usual favorite topic, I suppose, bashing Democrats, bashing progressives, bashing progressive darlings. I'm sure that doesn't help my numbers, but it is what I do. And if you like it, please do click like, please do click subscribe, and also call in. I definitely do want to talk to you, especially if you disagree with me. We'll get to Jamie Raskin and then Charles Blow in just a moment. But by way of this conversation, I was talking to a person who, likes my program and I think cares about what I have to say, but, asked me about how hard it is to be discussing such depressing topics day after day, and how do I deal with it? And I thought a lot about this, and I've thought about this, and what really bothers me, I mean, of course, watching the world burn up isn't, something that, floats my boat. I'm not happy about it. But I think what makes me even more depressed in the end is the feeling of being alone, that there just aren't others who see things really the way I see them. And that's why I do this program. And sometimes I feel like I'm making progress, other times not so much. Yesterday's program with Barry Lynn was a lot of fun. I mean, I enjoy talking to Barry. He's a great guy. He's really fought the good fight for many years. But, in the end, he does support Biden. He does accept the lesser of two evil argument. He raises the specter of the Donald Trump redux as reason alone, reason enough to vote for Joe Biden. And I just cannot embrace that worldview. I don't believe that's correct. And that's what I find very, very depressing in the end, is that there just isn't a groundswell of people who recognize that we absolutely must go in a different direction. You can watch Jimmy Dore and hear him bash Democrats till the cows come home. And he does talk about third parties now and again, but I don't get the sense from him. He's more of a nihilist, really. He doesn't see any real hope for the future. Certainly Democrats are nihilists. Their attitude is, hey, we're lesser of two evils. Not we're going to make things, but you do hear people say, well, when the Republicans get better candidates, then we can talk about maybe voting third party. When we don't have to run against a Donald Trump, then maybe it's okay to vote for a Jill Stein or a Cornel West. But you heard even Barry say yesterday, well, the problem is Nikki Haley is even worse than Trump. So we really have to vote for Joe Biden, because even if we don't get Trump, we'll get someone even worse if we don't support Biden. And I actually agree with that. I think Nikki Haley is as bad or worse than Trump. And I certainly think DeSantis is as bad or worse than Trump. But I'm not going to let the evil in the Republican Party at this point scare me into voting for somebody who is also doing evil, who is also committing grave harm, who is also making things worse when we are facing existential threats, truly existential threats, global burning, endless war. All right, let's talk about, and you know, there you go. So you see Raskin there. Let's talk about Hamas. I was at this Communities United Against Hate, that's what it's called, Montgomery County event yesterday. It was a virtual event. It wasn't in person. And maybe it would have been better if it was in person. But I think they didn't want it in person because some of the people who appeared actually didn't even appear. They were kind of grayed out on the Zoom call, or they just simply didn't appear whatsoever by video, because I think they're afraid they'll be targeted, some of these Muslim advocates and activists. And frankly, from what we saw yesterday or was it not yesterday, on Tuesday when I played clips of the outright calls for genocide in Rockville, Maryland, in Montgomery County, Maryland, where this Communities United Against Hate Montgomery County event is centered. So we have had outright calls, not just by one crazed nut, but by a group of, I don't know what you call them, pro-Israel, pro-Zionist ralliers, you know, saying we're going to kill you. Get the F out of our town, of my town, like it's my town. Get out, or we'll kill you. We'll kill you anyway. I mean, that was the message. So it's very understandable why people would say, I don't want to be there. I don't want anyone to know who I am. It's terrifying, frankly. Calls for genocide right here in Montgomery County. And this is something I was heartened by, that there would be an event addressing this outright rank hatred. But the event in it of itself was very disappointing. Just so you see again just what Muslims face in Montgomery County. There's the end of Gaza. Oh, let's get to the beginning. I thought we were at the beginning. I apologize. Here we go.
Brooklyn is my town. Fuck off. America is our home. We will protect America. We will secure America against you animals, against you traitors, against you barbarians. You'll never wake again, because we'll take your head. We'll take your life.
All right, so there it is, an outright call for murdering Palestinians, for murdering Muslims. That was in November of last year. Clearly, Islamophobia is a very, very serious problem. And there was, to give Communities United Against Hate credit, an event yesterday online to address it. And let's see, here we go. Virtual dialogue to counter Islamophobia and anti-Muslim bigotry. I'm not going to show you clips from that event because Maryland has very, very strict laws against recording people without their consent. And this event was kind of grayed out. I mean, anyone could participate, anyone could join it apparently, but you had to give your name, you had to give your address. And first and last name anyway. I don't really feel comfortable sharing a video of that event at this point. In fact, I didn't even feel comfortable recording it because Maryland law is pretty strict about that. So no video. But this is a positive thing to do, right? But the problem I have with it is that they didn't, it was a half measure, it was a half step. It wasn't just, okay, we've got a real problem, Islamophobia. We've got a real problem, anti-Muslim hate. How do we deal with it? It was like, no, this is just part of a bigger problem, hate against lots of different groups. And you can see Communities United Against Hate here had this event last night as part of a series. So, yeah, there's Muslim hate, there's gay hate, there's people who don't like gays, there are people who hate Jews, trans. It's all kind of, both sidesism or every sidesism. Well, no. People aren't standing on the streets saying we're going to cut off your heads to Jewish people. People aren't doing that. I know trans community claims they're under threat of genocide. And maybe they are. I'm not denying that's possible. But I haven't heard it. The argument by trans people is, well, they want to deny us hormone replacement treatment, and people will commit suicide as a result. And maybe that could be true. It's cruel to deny therapy to people who need therapy, who need treatment. I agree. But I'm not quite going to go so far as to call that genocide. Nobody's saying we're going to kill you. But people are saying we're going to kill you to Muslims in our communities. People are saying you're all terrorists, you're animals to Muslims. There's a qualitative difference. This is a community that truly is under threat of being killed. It's not the same. And to conflate anti-Semitism, homophobia, transphobia, to say that's the same as Islamophobia isn't right. It minimizes, it diminishes what Muslims are actually facing right now in the United States, and certainly the reality of genocide that Palestinians are facing in Gaza. And I understand some people say, well, Hal, you're being divisive. You're pitting two groups against each other. You're saying one group is more of a victim than the other. And you're absolutely right. I am saying that. That's true. I think all groups that are under duress, under attack, should join together, of course. But people who aren't in those groups should also join against hate. But the current threats levied against Muslims and the current reality that Muslims face is of a different nature. And I think we need to, that it's, if we don't recognize that, that's Islamophobia. Jamie Raskin, for reasons that are completely beyond me, well, they're not completely beyond me. This guy is really beloved in the progressive community here in Maryland, in Montgomery County. And I guess it's because he led an impeachment of Donald Trump after Trump was out of office that made Trump more popular, that was divisive. If you don't like divisiveness, why would you support what Raskin did that only hardened people either pro or anti-Trump, that made it more difficult for poor, struggling, and working people to join together against elites to take our country back from the billionaire class? If you don't want divisiveness, then why would you ever support Jamie Raskin, who's got to be one of the most divisive people in our government? And he displayed that divisiveness again when he opened up this conference. And I'll tell you what, when I saw that Raskin was speaking, I was immediately, look, I'm a hater. I'll admit, this guy really, really pushes my buttons. He's kind of like, sometimes I say to myself, Hal, are you a misogynist? Because people would say that, well, you hate Hillary. You're so against Hillary. It must be because she's a woman. And I was I kind of took that seriously, right? I didn't say, oh, that's ridiculous. I mean, I would think, is it true? I would look at all the really bad things Hillary's done and I'd say, well, but other people have done those really bad things. And I don't hate them as much. I don't hate Bill as much. And look what Bill's almost certainly now a pedophile, right? I don't know if you call it a pedophile, adolescent girls that he, pawed or whatever he did, or maybe raped down at Pedo Island with his Betty Epstein. It's disgusting. It's repulsive. And I don't know that I hate him. I have that same visceral negative charge that Hillary fills me with. So I was like, I mean, if you look at what Bill's done, it's just as bad as what Hillary's done. I mean, I could come up with various explanations for why I find Hillary personally more repugnant than Clinton, than her husband. But, in the end, he's done just as much harm as she has, or more. So why would I be more angry? And for those who say, well, he was president, so he must have done more harm. I don't know. I mean, look at what Hillary did with Honduras. Look at how Hillary pressured us to destroy Libya and turn it into a terrorist training, slave trading zone. I mean, Hillary did an awful lot of bad things. Hillary kept the minimum wage at Haiti at 29 cents an hour. So Hillary did a lot of really bad things. So I don't know if she would, but I have the same negative visceral reaction towards Jamie Raskin. He makes me see red. Okay. So that in a way makes me feel better about my feelings towards Hillary because Raskin's a man. So obviously it's not just sexism. It's not just misogyny. It's not just that I hate women, because Raskin fills me with the same kind of disgust as Clinton, as Hillary. So he's at this conference. And frankly, to be fair to Raskin, he hasn't done nearly as much harm as either of the Clintons have done, right? No way. I mean, he's a Congress member. He's done a lot of harm. I mean, leading that impeachment effort against Trump was a really, really, really bad thing to do. And it set us back, and it was very, very counterproductive and very divisive. But no, it's not like what we did to Iraq. It's not like what Hillary and Joe Biden did by joining with the Republicans to support the war on Iraq. I mean, it's not the same, right? It's not qualitatively the same. At this Communities United Against Hate workshop yesterday, Raskin, Congress member, obviously a coup to have him there, opens it. And the first thing he mentions, by the way, if you were there and I'm wrong, I'm almost certain this is right. I don't have a video, right? I told you about that. Is Hamas and the attacks on October 7th. I mean, we're here to combat anti-Muslim hate, Representative. You bring up an event that has been weaponized against Muslims and Palestinians. I mean, now I could say the guy's a moron, he's an idiot. No, he knows what his constituents want. He knows who they are. He knows who his donors are. Montgomery County is a very significant presence of Jewish voters, and they're wealthy, and they give him money. And they don't want to be told that they have to take their signs down that say we support Israel, and they need to be willing to confront Joe Biden with his unequivocal support for Netanyahu and for aid, continuing military materiel, which is killing Gazans. Jamie Raskin's powerful, wealthy constituents don't want to be told that there's anything wrong with Israel or with their support for Israel. So you go to this event about anti-Muslim hate. What are you going to do? Oh, it's too bad. I'm sorry that people hate you, but Hamas kind of started it a little bit, right? That's what he says. This is not now. So if you want to know, if you want me to be less unhappy, then my counsel to you is acknowledge how bad Jamie Raskin is. Recognize we need different, better leadership. I mean, that's what Arlen said something really interesting on this score. He said, no one is like you. Because I said in response to when Shade called for Peter B. Collins to be like a regular, right, to come on my live stream once a week or whenever, every month or so. And he said one of the issues I would have with Peter B. as a occasional co-host is that there wouldn't be much tension. There wouldn't be much disagreement. We would pretty much see eye to eye, which, by the way, you do see in some shows like Revolutionary Black Network. They pretty much only have on people who agree with them. They did have on Marianne Williamson, and that was not pretty. And same with when Jimmy Dore was on that show. Was she? Yeah, she was on, I think, RBN. I think she was. Anyway, I'm not like that. I don't like an agree fest. I want us to thrash out issues. I want people to agree with me. I mean, no, don't get me wrong. But I want it to be where we hear both sides or all sides of these, sometimes, not always complex. It's not complex in Gaza. Just stop killing people, Israel. But some issues can be somewhat complex. I don't feel like with Peter B. there'd be a lot of disagreement. Now, the problem, what Arlen said was, well, no one sees it the way you do, Hal. You're unique. Your views are really, truly unique. And I think that's right. And that, for me, is very unhappy, very disappointing, very dispiriting. You know, as bad as things are in this world, I think if we could come together with solutions and agree on them, we could address the problems we face. But the solutions, as I see them, I'm so clear on them, so few of you agree, even you who presumably find my program at least somewhat entertaining and informative. So, you know, there's huge pushback against a carbon tax, fossil fuels tax. There's huge pushback against abandoning the Democratic Party. And I honestly see no hope without doing those things. There's huge pushback against abandoning Jamie Raskin, who I think is, without question, a major part of the problem that we face right now. Raskin ruins it, I think, was the title. Blow. Charles blows it, right? Because Charles Blow is the New York Times columnist, Charles Blow. So Charles blows it. You know, there's your little pun for you. And I thought this was a really interesting column by Charles Blow. I don't want to be too hard on Charles Blow because he did something that I criticized Jamel Bowie, who's another African-American columnist in the New York Times. I criticized Bowie because he wouldn't go, he supported, so the column, I talked about this on my show, I guess Tuesday, was it maybe, that Bowie supported the effort to block Trump from the ballot under Amendment 14, Section 3, on the ground that he's a threat to our democracy, and he did, in fact, violate that section. And he might have. I'm on the fence on that one. I really am. I kind of see both sides of the argument. Interestingly, Barry Lynn, somewhat to my surprise, opposes the block Trump movement. I thought that was very interesting because he's certainly far more of a Democratic establishment type voice than I am. But what I criticized Bowie for was not examining why Trump is appealing to the black voters that Bowie, when Bowie says Trump is just this existential evil, how could, that's why Bowie says, because he's such a bad person, he's so evil, he's so horrible, we've got to figure out any way to keep him off the ballot. And Bowie say, legally, which he thinks 14.3 would be, and maybe he's right. But I said, hey, why don't you look into the question of why so many African Americans are so disheartened, so disillusioned by Joe Biden, so upset at the Democratic Party of Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden that they're prepared to vote for Trump. Somebody that you view as, completely, basically inhuman, subhuman. And I give Charles Blow credit because he did sort of get into this. So even though I said Charles blows it, I mean that because I think he didn't go nearly far enough, but he at least kind of sort of raised the question. And I give him a lot of credit for doing that. So this relates to that, the event we played yesterday at the Black Church in Charleston with Jim Clyburn, the Methodist Mother Emmanuel, I believe it's the Mother Emmanuel Church. And I'll see if I can get you that clip because it was pretty interesting. I want to, let's get it back. We played it yesterday, but I think it's definitely worth a second go round if I can find it. So yeah, no, there it's not there. So it would be in. We'll get to it in just a moment. But it's let's at least go because below addresses, I think pretty in some detail what happened at that. Is it Mother Emmanuel Church? So I want to share that with you one more time, and we can kind of get into it. And this was also got a lot of criticism, of course, from our friend. Simone Sanders, a Biden flack at MSNBC. So here we go again. Let's see if we can. This is the protest here.
Without the truth, there's no light. Without light, there's no path from this darkness.
If you really care about the lives lost here, then you should honor the lives lost and call for a ceasefire in Palestine. Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
All right, so a lot of passion, certainly from the protesters there, and they were not backed up by the churchgoers. Many moved away from them, which is also extremely disheartening to me. I mean, how this seems so clear, right? I say some issues are complex. This isn't one of them. We are complicit in genocide. And Joe Biden is complicit in genocide. And yet it's not something that many people are prepared to take him on. And here was a great opportunity to do so. And yet so many at that black church were tested and they came up wanting instead of joining the chants. Instead of saying to Jim Clyburn, you've done enough damage, you've done enough harm. We're not going to stand by your neocon, neo-lib Dems that you foist on us every 4 years, whether it's Hillary Clinton, whether it's Barack Obama, whether it's Joe Biden. Here's what, excuse me, still got that lozenge, sore throats. Well, I don't have a sore throat, but just congestion, which is horrible. Here's what Blow has to say. And you saw the protesters demanding a ceasefire. He did say, I understand their passion, and he said, I've been quietly working. But he says, Blow does, that's not satisfactory. It's not satisfactory. He says for young voters. I would say for anybody, right? I don't like that for young voters. I guess the point Blow's making is older black folks and older Democrats in general, we get it. It's not, these aren't cut and dried issues. I kind of, again, I'm older. I say it's cut and dried. But Blow's point is, hey, well, it's not so easy to just sit there and bash Joe Biden. Maybe he's doing the best he can. But for people who are convinced they're witnessing a genocide supported by the American president, that's not good enough. Well, aren't we? See, here's what where Biden blows it. We are witnessing a genocide, and it is supported by the American president. Why can't you say that, Charles Blow? Is that just because you don't believe it? Or is it because the New York Times tells you can't say it? I mean, I don't know. My guess is part of it is the New York Times is saying you can't say that. And I think there's a good chance that's true because so much of the money that the New York Times relies on for operations does come from the mic, does come from wealthy, Jewish advertisers. And I think they don't want to, you can only go so far. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't have proof of that. But the fact of the matter is that advertisers don't like going after Israel. And I think this is part of it. Maybe I'm wrong. Blow continues. He points out that a South Carolina activist who has real progressive chops, real cred, because she did, in fact, climb that flagpole to take down the Confederate flag, has said there was actually a massacre at that church. Said Biden is sponsoring genocide, and that's racial violence. So how can we, as African Americans, as Black people, support somebody who's complicit in this kind of racial violence? And I think that's a great question. And again, it's one which Charles Blow fails to answer. Before we get to what he does say, and to his credit, he doesn't just simply say, you know, Biden's kumbaya, Biden, Hakuna Matata, everything's fine. He is somewhat critical. But let's get into this. Is there genocide? What's going on? So this is from The Guardian. And we have heard, by the way, that there's going to be the violence is tamping down. Israel's kind of taking its foot off the gas a little bit. You're not seeing that in the headlines, folks. And by the way, if you want to call me, 240-242-5646, would love to talk to you. 240-242-5646. It is Halitics. Please click like. Please click subscribe. You know what? I go to a lot of work to put these programs together. I'm happy to do it. I love it. It's a labor of love. I want to do it. But to make me feel even better about doing that, I want to know that people are responding, people are getting it, people are into it. West Bank. This is not Gaza. This is the West Bank of Palestine. Oh, it's age restricted. Yeah. So I guess I have to go to YouTube to play it there. So we'll get rid of that. Sorry about that, folks. That's really kind of interesting. I may be able to play it for you. Let me see. And it was age restricted because what it shows is Israel firing on. I'll tell you what. We'll just leave it. I don't really want to go back to get into the issues with The Guardian or whatever with YouTube, but you can find it. But basically what the video shows is the Israeli army, the Israeli Defense Forces firing on unarmed people who didn't provoke them in the West Bank, unarmed Palestinians. That was yesterday. Here's something I think I can play for you. I hope I can. Israel intensifies airstrikes amid threat of wider war. So again, yesterday, I'll play. This is a long video, but again, going to the question, is Joe Biden complicit in genocide against Palestinians?
Picking through the debris after an Israeli strike on a home last night in Rafah. Mementos of lives destroyed. At the hospital, dead bodies lined up. Tears flow. And the pain is too much to bear for Harib Naufal. Several of his relatives were killed.
This is a massacre. What is this massacre? It was a building of 5 floors, each with 2 homes, so about 14 houses. 14 houses full of children and women, full of men and newborn babies too.
Protesters greeted US Secretary of State Antony Blinken as he visited the occupied West Bank today. America hopes the Palestinian Authority, led by Mahmoud Abbas, can play a leading role in Gaza after the war. But Abbas is old and lacks grassroots credibility, whilst right-wing Israelis, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, don't want to see the PA in charge.
All right, so I'll stop it there. Netanyahu is going to stop any kind of push for a ceasefire. They're simply, with this U.S. president, and frankly, if the president were Nikki Haley or President or Trump, it doesn't matter. There's not going to be a ceasefire. Unless we can somehow, there isn't going to be peace. There will be no shalom. Unless we find the political will, unless we find the courage to turn our back on the Democratic Party. Unless we are able somehow to be willing to vote for green candidates, to say to the Democrats, if you don't support human rights, if you don't support peace, if you don't support justice, you will not get our vote. Unless we say that and mean it, no shalom, death, destruction, endless war. And also the Anthropocene, also global burning, also climate holocaust, which we are, of course, right in the middle of. Sorry if this is depressing. So back, though, to Blow, because Blow gets it a little bit. He says Biden's answers on Israel, Palestine aren't enough. They're not good enough. They're not sufficient. Pardon the lozenge crackling in my mouth. I don't want to start coughing. So here's how Blow, and Blow acknowledges it's not just peace. There are other issues that are turning people off, young voters, black voters, but working class voters, older voters, progressive, that turn us off Biden. And he says, the economy, failures on the economy. He admits it. He gets it. This is where Blow blows it. This is the Bidenism when appealing to young black voters. How to get him to measure him and his record against the alternative and see that this year's election will be between a candidate who may disappoint and another intending to destroy. So this is the go-to. This is the go-to that the Democratic apologists always ultimately hit. Well, Biden's disappointing. He's not great. Maybe. But his intentions are good. Let's compare him to Trump. Trump wants to destroy. Biden's a reluctant destroyer. So I just will not embrace that attitude. Biden is a destroyer just like Trump. Biden set our fossil fuel emissions records just like Trump. Biden set fossil fuel production records just like Trump, just like Obama. I don't care if he's reluctant. I don't care if he says he supports Paris Accords. I don't care if he says behind closed doors he's nudged Bibi to be less of a murderer. None of that matters. The fact of the matter is we're complicit in genocide. None of that matters. We're complicit in creating ever more fossil fuel emissions. So, I mean, here's where, and that's, again, of course it's depressing. But what's more depressing is so few seem to get it. Really. Even like Crystal and Kyle, well, you got to vote for Biden. As bad as Biden might be, Trump's worse. Is he? I guess maybe on some things. All right, short show today. I'm at the end of my slide deck. We'll leave it on this. 1.48, 1.5. That's like this one of those milestone temperatures, right? If we hit 1.5 over pre-industrial times, we're really, really in the soup. And it looks like those estimates that the scientists kept giving, well, if we hit 1.5, we're past the point of no return. We're already past it. We're already past it, folks. We've already started down that road of cascading snow melt, ice melt, Arctic melt, even below 1.5, because 1.48 is a little bit less than 1.5. We're already looking at an ice-free Arctic. We're already looking at complete climate chaos in Europe due to changes in the Gulf Stream. Is Joe Biden going to do anything? Do you trust him Do you trust him to do anything about that? I mean, I do. I trust him to make it worse. All right, shorter show. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow for the free-for-all. Hope you call in. Hope to talk to you. Have a great day.